So today you're going to hear from several different respected preppers about what they would do differently if they could go back in time and re-prepare for this pandemic that we're in. And if you would, please go ahead and check out each one of these channels, and I will have a link to each one of them down in the description box below. So for myself, what I would actually change if I could go back in time and re-prepare for this pandemic, the main thing that I would change would be having comfort food. I had no issue with the amount of food that I had, but when this pandemic first started to hit, when everything first started getting closed down and grocery stores were getting, pretty much emptied and stuff like that, at the very onset of it, I wanted comfort food. I didn't want beans and rice and things made from corn and potato flakes and stuff like that. I wanted hot dogs and hamburgers or cheeseburgers that we grilled out. I wanted macaroni and cheese and stuff like that. Just flat out, I wanted comfort food. When that pandemic first started hitting, there was just so much uncertainty. I mean, when you went to the grocery store, they were out of a lot of items that you wanted. And then you had that concern. Would the pandemic hit hard enough that truckers wouldn't be able to deliver food to the grocery stores? Would a lot of police officers be getting sick from it and leaving me to be one of the only ones working? Or would I get it myself? So what that really taught me is that on the onset, now of course this COVID-19 was a SHTF light, but on the onset of uncertainty, on the onset of SHTF, you will probably want comfort food until you get used to, until you accept what's coming or your new way of life. So the big lesson for me, if I could go back and re-prepare for that time, would be comfort food. So what I'm going to do is here in the near future, I am going to be freeze drying a lot of things like hamburger patties, cheese, make sure I can have a way to make macaroni and cheese, hot dogs, and be able to make buns for these because I can make my own bread. But so the big thing for me is I'm going to be freeze drying for long-term food storage, a lot of comfort food stuff. So now let's hear from the well-respected preppers about what they would have done differently if they could be able to go back in time and re-prepare for it.
How you doing? This is Eric from RuleTheWasteland.com and the Lord Humongous channel on YouTube. If I had a chance to go back to before the coronavirus pandemic started and do anything differently as a prepper, I think there's two specific things that I actually would do differently. I don't think I did anything too significantly bad in preparation for this pandemic, but there are a couple things, obviously, that I would like to do a little bit differently. First one is to act a little more quickly on my instincts, to trust my instincts and act more quickly on them. That would have allowed me to be a little bit more prepared had this actually turned out to be a super serious pandemic. We're kind of lucky that the virus itself hasn't proven to be as serious as many of us feared it could be, but the resulting reactions / overreactions of the government and obviously the impact that the virus itself has had have been significant. But yeah, the first thing would be to trust my instincts and react faster. Things like stocking up on more supplies, buying things quicker, specifically masks, that I realized pretty soon, even just at the spike of the prices starting to go up, that I should act on that quicker to get more of them. Things I already had, masks, hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies, different types of health and pandemic related supplies that I definitely needed more of. Should have acted on that at the first sign. Even more recently, the realization that I need to get another chest freezer. I saw that this was going to be an issue, and I just was like kind of put it off a little bit because I didn't want to spend the money. And then sure enough, a few weeks later, maybe even days later, they're almost completely sold out. So I did sense that was going to be an issue, didn't act on it. And luckily by now I have managed to get one, but it was, maybe a month or two later. And if it was in a really serious scenario, I wouldn't have got that second chance. So definitely acting on my instincts a lot sooner, immediately when I get them, is probably the smartest bet. Something that I've cultivated over many years of focusing on preparedness, things like that, that I need to be able to trust those feelings when I get them. The second one would be to not just check the block on a certain supply, but actually make sure I'm at a level with that supplier, with that skill or whatever it is, with that preparation, that actually is meaningful or adequate for whatever the scenario might be. For example, I had some N95 masks because I had thought about pandemic type disaster scenarios before, so I just got a few, like, there, check the block. But like in a legit scenario, like a serious pandemic, like we're experiencing / could have experienced, something like 10 or 20 masks is not adequate. So even though I thought of it all I did it enough to prepare for was kind of check the block. I didn't really think extensively about the level of that supply that I would need. And that pretty much goes for a lot of the pandemic specific supplies. I had thought of them before. I got a little bit of it just to kind of check off that block in my mind, but I didn't really adequately prepare or go through the thought process of, okay, if this really happens, how many would I need? Would I need a new mask every day? Actually, I'd probably need like 2 or 3 new masks every day if this was really serious. So how many days does 20 masks get for two or three people? Almost nothing. So actually preparing it to an adequate level, not just checking the block on a couple of supplies. So those are the 2 things that I would have done differently if I had to go back to the start of this pandemic. And I appreciate you guys watching.
Okay, my next guest is actually a firefighter, and many people probably don't know this, but firefighters, which he is, and police officers, which I am, we many times have a friendly rivalry where we like to tease each other and stuff like that. But we always have each other's back because we respond to shootings together, personal injury, car accidents, and stuff like that together. So even though we tease each other like 2 brothers would tease each other, we still have each other's back. So anyways, I am very happy that the Angry Prepper decided to collaborate on this video, because I was actually very surprised that he did, because when I saw the video that he shot, it really looked like he shot that video at noon. So we all kind of know that noontime is nap time there at the firehouse. You know, because firefighters get to sleep while they're on duty. So anyways, friendly teasing aside, here is the Angry Prepper.
So the Ethical Preparedness asked me a question on what I would have done differently for the pandemic. Deconning procedures is something that we were working on during the pandemic. So while the pandemic was going on, we were fine-tuning my deconning coming into home. My wife works from home, my kids are at home, obviously because schools are closed, and I was the only one coming in and out of the home. Therefore, I was exposing myself to different people's homes as well, being exposed to the coronavirus. I didn't get it, I didn't get tested for it, I didn't have any symptoms, I wasn't sick at any time. So I'm not saying that I didn't get it, I'm just saying that I never displayed any symptoms. I could have had it, I don't know. I'm not interested in taking a test because I know that my immune system is pretty strong. I wasn't worried about the COVID at all. So our deconning procedures for the second wave coming is exactly what we did, except for we're going to leave a decon kit outside in the hallway when I come home. So that's hand sanitizer, watered bleach. What I would do is water bleach my clothing and put it in a plastic bag, right? So the amount of bleach you need to put in a water bottle is not going to stain your clothes, right? If that makes any sense. You don't make it so that it's insanely strong. You add a couple drops to a spray bottle. That's going to decontaminate your clothes. Yes, it's going to fade your clothes, but such is life, right? So I did that. I put it in a plastic bag, put the plastic bag in the corner of the apartment. Sometimes leave it outside. More N95 masks. So we had enough to sustain ourselves for this pandemic, and we still have enough to sustain ourselves for the second wave, but I wish I had more to give away. That was where I'm going to fine-tune my, I guess, prepping area is the face mask. The surgical mask are though if both of you have a surgical mask on, your chances of catching COVID is down to 2%, right? But both having an N95 mask on, your chances of catching it is 0. So that's something I like to work on with more N95s. Quarantining. Hotels in the area offered city workers or essential workers, to stay in hotels away from their family. I am definitely going to take them up on that offer come the second wave. Though the deconning worked, I don't want to take any chances. So I would definitely entertain the deconning in the hotel room. But the hotels offered us to stay there for a duration, whatever that was, like 2-3 weeks. I think it was every 2 weeks you had to re-up, so be it. That's what I'm doing next time, just to keep my family safe. Boosting your immune system. So now, boosting your immune system is huge. And a lot of people for those who passed away, they had very bad immune systems, right? So boosting your immune system is going to play huge game in the second wave because, or huge role, sorry, in the second wave because you'll probably be able to handle it a little better. So whether that's boosting your vitamin C, eating less sugar, and guys, sugar plays a huge role. I'm only down to a tablespoon of sugar in my coffee. That's pretty much all where I put sugar right now. It's in my coffee alone. I quit soda, again, to get in preparation for this. I might have a can here and there, but I used to drink something like 6 cans of Pepsi in a day. So now I'm down to about 1 a week, right? And right now I'm down to 1 every other week, sorry. With the 4th of July coming, I can't make any promises, but I have diminished my sugar intake drastically because I want to be ready for the second wave. Also, vitamin C, again, zinc, magnesium, vitamin D3 for men. There's a lot of things you can take to boost your immune system. Toilet paper. We made it through the whole pandemic on the toilet paper we had, but we came close to running out towards the end. That taught me a lesson. Buy more toilet paper before everyone else runs out. Now, I'm not going to hoard it, obviously, but I'm going to buy enough to last us probably a few months. Now, one of those giant stacks that you get from like BJ's or Costco's or whatever, one of those should last you a month. It should. And if it doesn't last you a month, that means you guys are using way too much toilet paper. You should start from here on out measuring everything out, right? Measure the food that you were eating, measure the toilet paper you're using, the paper towels you're using, measure the amount of Advils or Tylenol, whatever it is that you're using. Measure all of that out, and that's going to give you a better gauge of how much you need to buy for the second wave. Now, the second wave I think is going to be a little longer. That being said, buy more stuff, and buy more stuff now. Do not wait for later. All right, guys, so back to the ethical preparedness.
Hi, Prepper Potpourri here. Thank you so much for inviting me to this. You know, the pandemic is one of the threats that I have prepared for. When I started my channel over 5 years ago, one of the first videos I made was how to create a pandemic preparedness kit in a bucket. So I have been getting preps and preparing for this for some time. And about 10 months ago, I think it was, I made a video that basically I was saying I think bug out bags are overrated. I think we should have better car kits and supplies at home. Because in a lot of cases we may be staying in, not bugging out. And that certainly is true for those of us that are in lockdown. But are there things I'd like to do differently? Yes. I think there's probably about 3, okay? Number 1, financial. I turned 65 in June, and in a year's time, right, I can get Social Security, but I have to depend on my 401k plan also. Well, my husband's and my 401k plan just went zoom, right? We were seeing a 6% drop, an 8% drop. We just didn't want to see 2008 all over again. So I have some money in cash, much more liquid, but I wish I had more. You know, if I was young, I'd say leave it all in and just wait for the stock market to completely recover. But at my age, I might not see that happen, especially if we get a second wave of that pandemic. But number 2, I wish I had more masks to give to family and friend. You know, I have a lot of the construction type N95, but I kept those for immediate family. And then I realized how many people at work and how many people, acquaintances, had no masks at all. So I wish I had more, and whenever this is over, I'm going to buy more and have more of a mask supply. I also wish I had more of the surgical masks, which only protects you from me, right? But they're so much easier to put on over the ears as opposed to the N95, the elastic around here, the elastic around there. And I really have those in short supply. The third thing is, well, owning a business, right? I own a small business, and this hit us hard. We didn't expect to be considered essential workers, have to go to work every day when a lot of our clients weren't able to do surgery, and it's created a very tight budget, if you can even say budget. And for a lot of my employees, it was much more difficult because now their kids weren't in school, they might be home, you had to worry about childcare. And I wish I would have planned more things that could be done from home for my employees. Not all things can, but I wish I had more of a system. So that's it for me. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you.
Thank you, Ethical Preparedness, for having me on. I sure appreciate it. As you may have mentioned, I'm JJ Johnson from Reality Survival, and I want to talk about the 3 things that I have learned from the COVID-19 thing. So the first one is food preps. And, prior to this instance, I probably had about 80% of my long-term food storage, in stuff like rice, beans, dehydrated foods, and those kinds of things, stuff from the Mormon cannery and that kind of thing. And this incident has kind of taught me that it's probably more beneficial to have a distribution of more like 40% stuff you normally eat and rotate, and maybe 60% on the long-term storage stuff. And that way, if you have more of that stuff on hand, you don't have to go to the grocery store as often for those convenience items and things like that. Next one is the benefit of having an intelligence network, and having good information come into your inbox and through people that you deal with on a regular basis is really important. And it showed me through this whole thing that if you can get good information early, which is hard to do nowadays, there's a lot of fake news out there, then you can make better decisions and you can have time to fill the gaps in your preps, And so that was an important, it was really kind of just a confirmation of that, that having good information set up is important. Then the next thing is bumping up your home security. As we're seeing right now at the time of this recording, it's right in the middle of all these riots. Now, this is not directly COVID related, but I think it all kind of plays into one another as far as disasters and that kind of stuff. And making sure that your home security is squared away and really good to go, and that you've got plans on what to do if things happen and stuff is quite important. So I think those are the 3 things that I would say that have been the most hit home for me during this whole situation. Yeah, I think that's probably it. I talk a lot about each one of these things on my Patreon account. It's American Prepping Academy on Patreon. If you guys want to come over and check it out or whatever, I'd sure appreciate it. So anyway, thank you, Ethical Preparedness, for having me on. I certainly appreciate the opportunity.
Hey EP, thank you so much for having me on this collab. I really appreciate it. So I think the main thing that I learned from COVID is that I want to be more self-reliant. We were full-time RVing on the road for a while, and then we decided to buy land. I mean, that was our biggest lesson from this. We weren't very self-reliant, and we didn't have, anything in place to be more self-reliant. I think that anyone can be self-reliant, even if you live in an apartment, self-reliant on certain levels, but we still need to rely on the community as well. That was another really big thing that we learned, that we really need to get more involved in our local community. And I know a lot of preppers really don't like that local community aspect, but getting to know our neighbors has opened up huge collaboration between us, and it's been a really big eye-opener when it comes to getting to know our neighbors. It doesn't matter where you live in the city or suburb or country or whatever, you should really try to get to know at least a couple neighbors. There is strength in numbers. So in addition to being getting on the path towards being a little more self-reliant, maybe not totally self-reliant, because we do still have a community that we can rely on, and they can rely on us. Another eye-opener for us was definitely upping our security. people are just so unpredictable. And if this pandemic has really taught us anything, it's that, you know, people will fight over toilet paper. You know, what else are they going to fight over? So, you know, we really wanted to up that security, up our, you know, self-defense methods, all that kind of thing. So that was definitely another big lesson that we wanted to learn. So anyway, those are the couple big lessons and paths that we're working towards now. But thank you so much for having me on, and I can't wait to hear everybody else's responses. Conquer tomorrow by preparing today.
Anyways, folks, I want to really thank the well-respected preppers that collaborated on this video and told us what they would do differently if they could go back. So why don't you do me a favor, why don't you please comment below with what you would have done differently if you could go back in time and re-prepare for this pandemic. And if this pandemic ends up hitting even harder, where the grid actually ends up going down and grocery stores go bare also, then you want to make sure that you can cook your food without having to use fire, nor gas, nor electricity. So to see a video to see how this popular sun oven actually cooked a meal in the middle of winter surrounded by snow, then click on the video that should be appearing on the screen just about now to learn more about that. Anyways, folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.